It's my own little turkey. There you go. Okay, so it is 3 o'clock. And this is your first meeting of this is this committee's first meeting of the year. So the first item, just because you don't have a chair yet, the first item on the agenda is for the committee to select its chair and vice chair for the year. And your bylaws dictate that the chair and vice chair should be one of the two elected board members.
Indeed would do just very full at that. I nominate him.
Okay, all right, we'll do that, thank you.
All in favor? Gotta say aye.
Aye. Okay, and we'll do vice chair for you then.
Okay,
Thank you. That was easy.
yep.
I thought I had to fight you, but no. Okay, so second item is, oh, actually, do you mind, is it possible to move the item for station expansion concept review to end of the meeting? Because
Sure.
I have a lot of questions on that, so just want to make sure we get to all the other stuff, if that's okay.
I just spent over an hour on that.
I know, see, I'm gonna spend another couple hours.
I'll leave it.
Okay, so we'll do the USDA grant application. CPF status.
Yeah, so this is just informational today, but for the good of the committee and particularly for Keith Agson, who probably knows about this, but isn't involved, doesn't get as many pieces of information delivered from me anyway. We have sought for several years congressional funding, federal funding for a fire engine. And that really didn't go very far with Congressman Carvajal's office, like it went nowhere. We submitted, but it never made it to his hot list. And then last March, so about 15 months ago, Congressman Panetta's office, and just you might think back, that was Panetta's first year serving our area, put out the requests, and I didn't think all that much of it, but his legislative director, Mark Denning, called me and said, the congressman would like to do something for Templeton. And these things operate on a very tight time frame, like about a week. Like the notice comes out and you've got a few days. It's out, actually came out last week for this year. We didn't submit, but and so we scrambled to dust off our previous information, and we kind of I made some changes to our approach, and we submitted, and within a month or so, we were on the congressman's list of submitted projects. And kind of there it stayed all of last year with no real action on the federal government. You might remember that this was kind of one of the worst years in terms of these postponements of the federal budget. So we heard last summer that likely if it is funded, our request would be reduced to no more than $1 million. We had requested about $1.25 million for a fully outfitted engine. And then later in the fall, we had got better, more positive information from Panetta's office saying it looks like this is going to work out. And we asked at that point to try to coordinate with USDA to try to work on a kind of a parallel path to both secure so that we could order the engine and process the grant application at the same time, assuming it was ultimately funded. That worked well for a couple months, and then the USDA's office said, no, you have to cease all acquisition activities. Otherwise, if you are awarded the funding, the grant could be at risk. So we did. And then in February, we got, more positive information from Panetta's office. And then ultimately in March, when the series of the federal appropriation bills were approved, lo and behold, most of these community projects made it. All of Panetta's submitted applications were funded. We being one of them. So we since received sort of more formal. We got that indication from, of course, Panetta's office, and within a few days, this was a published document. And then we've had some correspondence with USDA. We've participated in at least 2 webinars about this program from USDA, first nationally, and then in our state, just about 2 weeks ago. This is not, Panetta's office might come and bring us a real big, pretty check, but this isn't a check we're gonna be able to cash or put in the bank. USDA treats this like a grant program. There are a lot of strings attached. The only good news is it's no longer competitive. The money's set aside in our name, but we still have to follow all of their requirements, and there are pretty extensive application requirements. We submitted most of those items to USDA on Friday. Tomorrow night, the board will hold a public hearing to accept any testimony. This will be our second one from concerned residents about the proposed usage of the funds. Although it's not like we can change that, it's specific to a fire engine, you know, so if somebody were to come in and say, we don't want a fire engine, we want a park instead. You couldn't make that decision to do that. So that's kind of where we are with the grant application. USDA has stated that they will, we owe them a couple more pieces of information. I just sent out to you just a few minutes ago, to the board members, I'm sorry, a few minutes ago, into employees, a request that I have to sign I either have to disclose the names of any persons who work for USDA that are related to any district employees or board members, or sign a statement that we don't have any district employees or board members that are related to USDA representatives. So I just sent that to you earlier today. We'll have to send the board meeting minutes and notice of publication of the grant application to USDA to supplement the application. Don't know how fast the processing will be. Our representative with USDA is a guy named Al out of Santa Maria, a nice guy. I've worked with him several years ago before, but he's not necessarily, this isn't, you know, it's probably not as important to him as it is to us. And so he's not necessarily like all over it, rolling out the red carpet to assist us. I don't think it'll be extra hard, but it has to go through his processing and USDA's, I think they call it underwriting. So that's, you know, it's a full application packet that was submitted. Once USDA gives us some sort of a tentative approval of the application, there's going to be I believe a 6-day waiting period for Congressman Panetta's office to review it before it's announced that USDA has approved our application. Only at that point can we begin incurring expenses without the risk of them not being covered. And USDA does have their own set of rules about how we go about making these purchases, but our application or our purchases shouldn't be particularly complicated. It's not like a purchase of property or a building or something that's more complicated. So that's kind of where we stand. There will be a couple more steps for the board to take before this is all finalized. And as USDA reviews our application, we'll make any corrections or anything that's necessary. But I think it should go fine. It's just not as fast as we would like.
Of course, never is. All right, wonderful. Well, thank you for that report. Any questions?
Yeah. Are there any matching funds that the district has to come up with?
Yes, it will fund up to $1 million and up to 75% of the engine. Our current estimate is that this engine and all the other things that go with it are going to be somewhere like $1.3 million, and so it ends up working out pretty close to 75%.
Okay. And then the build timeline, is there a restriction? Is the grant open until it's spent, or is it?
I don't know if there's a restriction, but they know it's going to be a couple years before we
Okay. Yeah,
secure
because the lag time is so long right now.
So no, we haven't been told that there's an absolute cutoff. We were really trying to get ahead of this last year and get the thing ordered so that we were at least underway, but apparently wasn't possible. So yeah, no, a lot of the projects they fund end up being like construction projects that take, maybe they haven't even started, like they would take several years anyway. If you had to hire like an architect and buy land and all that stuff, so there's no expectation that like the money has to be spent by a certain date specific. So
That's all I have.
Okay, any questions? No? Okay. All right, I don't have any questions, so thank you.
So yeah, I think at this point, you know, maybe we're hoping that by June we get some sort of, you know, grant approval, but I don't know if that's unreasonable or not. I know it won't be before. Even right now, we likely wouldn't be able to submit the last piece of grant application information until after your first meeting, the board's first meeting in June. Because we'll need minutes from tomorrow's meeting to be approved.
Oh, I see. Okay, all right.
But they said that won't hold up the review of the original application.
Oh, okay. All right, so you'll send that in and then send the supporting
Yes.
documents.
Mhm.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. All right, next item, engine specs and solicitation for bids. Is that chief or?
Yeah, I'll pull it up on here. So we submitted this to to you as a part of this packet. Actually, so this is very much related to the topic we just spoke about. And so, yeah, so the chief put together proposed, bid specs, and we wanted to review those with the committee. Because as soon as we feel confident that that we can issue these, we'd like to get this out to engine manufacturers. So that the moment we're able to award the moment USDA says the grant is good, and we're then able to award like a purchase order to a vendor, we have everything in place. The only thing that USDA was real specific about was that we needed to get 3 bids. And of course, your own guidelines require, well, it's not an absolute requirement, but the goal is to get at least 3 bids. So, yeah, Tom can go through these, to whatever detail you'd like. It's really, it's not particularly, lengthy.
Okay, yeah. No, so-
And keep in mind with these specifications, these are just basic specifications. When we sit down with a manufacturer, we're gonna get very detailed on what the specifics are on that particular engine. This just sets the bar, so to speak, and says this is what we're looking for.
Well, I have, were you gonna go over anything or I just?
I can go over whatever you'd like. So basically what we're looking at is a type 1 pumper with a minimum 2,000 GPM pump. Because of the amount of commercial that we're seeing development wise over in the industrial area, a 2,000 GPM pump, for example, would have been significantly helpful on the waste fire. The turning radius, that's established by our standards with regards to cul-de-sacs, design standards for development. And so those are the turning radiuses that we've established and adopted in our code. So the truck just needs to be able to turn within those radiuses. A 13-inch frame rail, most manufacturers can do something to that nature. We can be a little bit flexible on that. But that's for stability of the chassis itself. A 500 horsepower minimum engine, that's significant because we don't want to have issues getting up to Wayne's house, for example. Going up Lincoln, going up some of the steeper hills that we have in our community. A type 1 pump and roll ability without an auxiliary motor. The reason I indicated without an auxiliary motor on that is due to having an additional engine that's having to check the oil, maintenance, potential problems with if we had to pump and roll, eliminating that process of having that additional engine that sits up on top of, and then the added plumbing and additional plumbing that takes place with an auxiliary motor. And then you can only hook certain outlets on the engine. As opposed to without an auxiliary motor, it pumps off the same pump. We can move the engine down the road, attack a roadside vegetation fire more easily. And then we aren't dealing with that auxiliary motor either.
Hey, just if I can interrupt you. So is there a manufacturer that makes a midship pump and roll, or do you
Yeah.
never go to a PTO?
No, there's midships now.
Pump and roll?
The Puck, for example, and then Rosenbauer just came out with one.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know about Spartan, and I'm not sure about High Tech. I think has also.
But I think, well, and I know you'll get to it when you get to it, but I'd definitely write that in, being midship, not PTO. PTO is gonna open up for everybody, and that's a
Yeah.
miserable you have a ton of problems that,
Yeah.
you know that.
So when we get specific, we'll put midship instead of PTO. PTO is power takeoff.
Mhm.
Midship pump's a little bit different.
It's just in line.
It's
like
in, it's in
a
line with
transfer
the,
case.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we need to then, we need to modify this to specify that.
Well, it's a specific, we can just add midship pump. So,
Yeah, it may cut down the number of vendors that are available to do that.
Yeah, one of my concerns is
There's a value.
I wanna get at least,
What, that's-
I wanna get at least 3 bids in order to satisfy you. I mean, if we don't, we'll have to have that battle with them, but it may be if we can at least get, if we get at least 3 vendors, then we won't have a problem awarding a low bid.
yeah, and that's why I kind of put it out there, not very specific with a lot of this stuff. And, you know, if we want to go specific with midship pump, we can do that. But again, it could eliminate some of the potential manufacturers, so we'll see. I'm not sure. I know Rosenbauer and Pierce both do a midship. And we can go from there.
This is a feature that we don't have today, right?
Correct. Yeah, our type 1 engine, once it stops and goes into pump, you can't move it.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
what
You
you
can
can
move it.
do is then you run the line out, they run as far as they can, you stop, you take it out of gear.
Right.
They can move forward. There's a way of doing it. It's
Slower.
slower. It's more convenient to be able to pump and roll. I wasn't aware that they're able to do that. So I bought a pumper just before I left and it was around 900,000 and that was not, and it was a puck. But maybe it's a new feature, so.
yeah,
But I know PTO is a huge hassle. so.
yes, yeah. Okay. A hydraulic driven foam system, that's fairly standard. Let's see, and then the rest of this is basic information that, you know, you want to request of the manufacturer to meet the UL and NFPA requirements. And then the other items are beginning at mobile radios to be provided by us. We have those to be installed by manufacturers. Same thing with the NBC, the mobile data computer. And then we want approval drawings with line item details, and this is kind of where we get into the nitty gritties. That will basically show our compartment layouts, our seat configurations, all the other stuff that's applicable. And that's gonna be in the design, but that would be after we select the manufacturer, okay? And then we need a repair facility that's within 100 miles or has the ability to send a mobile repair mechanic to the station. So we're not driving 250 miles to the closest facility that could do warranty work.
Well, that was my question and something that general manager brought up. Is 100 miles gonna limit us in terms of, are there enough vendors that we could get minimal 3 vendors at least?
Well-
I mean, I know for just sake of getting bids, should that
I
be?
think what they will have to do, so I know there are 2. Spartan and Pierce. Rosenbauer is probably 150, no, more than that. Ventura is their closest. But they've indicated they would probably have a mobile mechanic also.
Okay,
So it doesn't eliminate them.
no,
They just have to provide that option of a mobile mechanic to come and do the warranty.
I was just thinking if we need to make that 150 or 170, just to make sure we get enough bids.
Yeah, the problem is if we start going out that far, then we're taking a person out of service, we're paying the overtime, we're paying another follow vehicle.
Of course.
You know, those types of things. And I think it's kind of incumbent on some of these or these manufacturers to start providing, you know, that service, you know, statewide. So we'll see what they come up with.
Alright, just wanna make sure we get the 3 bids.
I'm not a mechanic, but could a mobile mechanic, I mean, if you have a humongous repair, could they fix that?
Well, if we had a catastrophic breakdown or something like that, no, we'd probably be lowboying it to the
I'll bet it's.
closest facility.
Okay,
Um,
but the majority of the work could be done by a mobile.
Correct, yeah, yeah. So any warranty work, so for example, we had a dash issue with, or a instrumentation issue was 7160. We had to take that and drive it down to Santa Maria, which isn't that far, but that's, 3 hours out of the day for that individual, overtime and everything else, and then getting it back here. So to have the ability to have somebody come up and just do that now, BME,
Okay.
they have Pierce, which can come and do the warranty work on it.
Any other questions?
No question.
And then all other equipment, is, to be fully equipped will be, purchased separately and by us, and we would do that after the purchase of the engine or simultaneously. And we've got a breakdown of all of that equipment and.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say, will be an example of the other equipment.
So, for example, hose, couplings, SCBA's, again, radios and MDCs, those types of things, but we've got those. Jaws of life, so extrication equipment, chainsaws, tools, etc.
Quite a bit of additional.
There will be a big durable goods. Hey, so, your current engine, is it?
7195.
Yeah, it's on per NPA, it's end of life, but are you gonna keep it as a reserve?
Yes.
Okay, so you won't be rolling that equipment over then?
No, and we've done some repairs on it to extend the life.
Okay,
So it can do at least, 5 years without running
right.
it as much as it's running right now. Putting another 2 years on it. I think this year we spent another, I haven't tallied it up yet, but close to $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 on it.
So one of the arguments of this new engine is it's not a replacement for 7195, but a second engine so that we have additional redundancy.
That's smart.
So I think our goal in this, this is drafted, so this would be due back.
I put a question mark on it. Sorry, it might say May 6th, but that date. That's just not working.
I think the other was it, the one that
It's the roller. Maybe not.
Maybe I did put June.
So, here's down here. By June 10th, those dates it's gonna depend on when this actually gets released.
Correct.
So at least, is a month, is that sufficient to
Yeah,
get these splits
oh,
back?
absolutely.
So, I mean, if this were to happen like it's shown here, the soonest the board would consider approving the purchase would be the second meeting in June. That's all like very optimistic, but,
Would this come back to this committee or we'll just go
it
direct?
wouldn't have time to go back to this committee if we stuck with that time frame. You'd only have about 2 days from the due date. for this to
Correct.
get on the board agenda, so.
Okay.
But again, that's pretty optimistic. One of the things that USDA is gonna look for is adherence to our own purchasing policy.
Yes.
There's not a lot of, if the bid meets the specs, it's the lowest price bid. That's who you're gonna have to award it to. So if there is concern, then the specs are where it needs to be dealt with. So that you don't get a bidder that meets the specs that you don't end up wanting to make the purchase from.
And then we could do this even before we get the USDA.
Well, I mean. Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna have to coordinate that with USDA. What I don't wanna do is make a purchase decision.
Yeah.
And then them come back and say there was something wrong, and now you can't use your USDA grant to make that. That's been our concern all along, is how do we align the USDA approval and the purchase of this. Now that we have the actual award, a formal award letter, and the award from USDA, maybe that risk is minimized. We just need to coordinate that with USDA.
Okay, and you guys will. at that.
Yeah, we can-
And I think through some of these webinars that we've sat through, and, if a mistake would delay us, we don't wanna make any mistakes. But it's not like we would lose the funding, from my understanding. We would have to make some corrections, possibly delay us and redo some stuff. But as the general manager said, we wanna make sure that, we're hitting everything the first time out, so we aren't delayed anymore.
Okay.
So if there aren't any, we can make those couple minor changes we just talked about a few moments ago, and then maybe we can, we'll route this through like, our rep at USDA now and see, hey, can we go ahead and send, is there any problem with sending this out? I'll take, go ahead and get the bids solicited.
Yeah, I mean, even outside that, you can always get a bid. It's just.
The awarded bid, yes, the
Yeah,
award.
awarding the bid, so.
And then I guess you guys will see if you get enough, number of vendors, 3 vendors. If you don't, then you may have to change some of this.
Yeah, or we'll have to work with USDA to see, to try to document that we attempted to,
Okay.
and send it to additional.
Yeah,
We postponed it, we've sent it to other
Okay.
bidders. At some point, you can't make somebody
Yeah.
give you a proposal, you know.
I met with the Cambria chief for lunch today. He was saying that they're in their bid spec. He came back 3 to 5 years is what Pierce gave them on their bill. So. You know,
That's a big issue for us, is the time, is the timeliness, and I think that's one of the issues that, you know, that's a material issue, is not having to wait so long.
Yeah,
well, the line,
yeah,
the,
everybody's buying.
yeah, I
She had
mean.
COVID, she had this huge delay, but now everybody's
Yeah.
in line.
And it's just, it's a backlog. And literally the backlog has hit every manufacturer out there.
Alright, well, I think good, I guess. Maybe we get lucky and somebody cancels their
Yeah,
order.
no, that's the best, huh? Got one that's close.
Yes, we'll take it. Alright, is that it, chief?
That's it on the, yeah, notice of intent to go out to bid.
Alright,
Okay, and then you wanted to skip for now the station expansion?
so we go to Safer Grant status and opportunity to reapply.
Yeah, just wanted to give you an update. You know, we, just as a reminder for the committee, the district has been involved in applying and receiving safer grants for more than a decade. We're very fortunate to have received a couple now. It's almost 2 years ago. About 2 years ago, we applied for a safer grant. The chief applied for a safer grant for additional hard staffing to expand our coverage to 3 persons, 24 hours a day. And that was awarded. We had applied for that the prior couple of years and it wasn't awarded, for example. But it was awarded in the fall of 22. And then we signed that agreement, and beginning in February of 23, we started, we expanded our staffing to 3 persons, 24 hours a day. That is a 3-year grant award, about $800,000 or so over those 3 years period. We're about 15, 16 months into that 3-year period. And so as we are going through that time, we're looking at ways to get additional funding to be able to maintain that staffing, and Safer is one of those opportunities. But I don't want you to believe that we should expect to get another Safer award. Again, we've been fortunate on a couple of occasions here, but we've not, we've also applied several times without being funded. So that it looks like the timing would be next spring's application for an award in the fall of 2025.
Correct.
And that would allow, that would sync up under ideal circumstances, so the new Safer grant would pick up where this one leaves off. And allow us to have sort of a seamless continuation of this funding, but, you know, that's not worked out for us in the past. So I don't know what the odds are or anything. I don't know how fortunate, you know, or how likely we are to get awarded.
We will have to wait and see. I mean, with the fact that we have safer positions, going back and asking for additional years, you know, could increase our likelihood. If we can maybe come back after that 3 years and guarantee, look, we're gonna keep these. But yeah,
So our funding for, as we're in the middle of putting together the budget for next fiscal year for the board's consideration. That Safer is fully funded through next fiscal year, but the Safer grant runs out in early 2026. So the following February, mid-February would be the end of the 3 years. So again, we're just under halfway through that time period.
How many firefighters did you get out of it? 5?
Two.
Just 2?
Yeah.
Okay. And then how much is your yearly amount that you're getting from them?
Annually is, was it, 260?
See, it grows each year a little bit because our costs go up, but like something like 275.
And then this is just a terminal one. You don't have to keep any of these folks on. But if you reapply, then you have to show the Nexus that you're gonna keep them on permanently. The next go around, is that, okay?
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know about that.
What's
So
that?
next-
Yeah,
if you-
usually they'll give you one, you wanna extend it, because the first one you get, you don't have to guarantee that you're gonna employ those firefighters when the grant runs out. But if you get it a second time, at least my experience is, you have to show that
You
you'll
have to
employ
show that you've
50% of them, I think.
Yeah, you have to show that you can at least keep some of them.
Yeah, I thought it was half, yeah.
Yeah. No, not this first one,
Not the one currently.
not the current
But
one.
the
You go
next
for
one,
another.
the next one that you're gonna apply for March 25, you need to say that you're gonna like keep, after the 3 years is over, you're gonna
Correct.
keep. So, okay, that would be something.
That's a consideration.
Yes, so we need to talk about that at the board or something. Before we apply.
Well, and I don't know if it affects the application or the acceptance. When you accept the grant, that's when you commit to those.
Okay, alright, okay, alright, so it's when we accept, okay.
I mean, I'd like to know too, whether, you said it wasn't all 3, so would it be 2 or 1 or 1
So
and a half?
right now it's 2, right?
It would be 2 positions, yeah.
Okay, could be 2. Has to be 2.
No, two positions are funded by Safer right now. Two engineers are funded by Safer 24 hours a day. So
One we have to keep.
So currently we have 3 full-time captains and 1 full-time engineer that's funded by the operational budget. And we've added 2 engineers with the Safer grant,
2 engineers.
and then we have reserve firefighters that fill the 3rd spot.
But that's not safer.
That's not
Yeah,
Safer,
so the only one is 2 fire engineers. for the
Correct.
safer grant.
exactly.
So we have to keep 1 fire.
yeah, what we can do is ensure that we'll review those requirements and keep you up to speed even through when the application window's open and determine if there's what those conditions are.
And quite honestly, there's modifications that we can do to the reserve staffing that could open up some money for that second engineer position, or we might be in a better financial picture in a couple of years.
Okay. Alright. Any other questions on this? Well, thank you for bringing that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, next item, weed abatement requirements and status.
Yeah, again, this is just informational, since this was this time of year, we put this on the agenda. It's nothing really unusual here. This is an annual requirement.
I've cut 3 times, what do you mean unusual?
Well,
And it just.
I'm glad you have plenty of time. What I do want to point out a couple things that we wanted to make sure that you and the public are aware of. One, we had a second wet winter, and this winter was some pretty late season rains. Remember about 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, we had 2 inches of rain. So we really expect these grasses to continue to grow through the month of May. Everything's still quite green. Rained a little bit on Saturday. I think we recorded about 0.2 of an inch. So the district's requirements are always to have property owners abate their weeds by May 1st. And this was the calendar that we published. But this calendar here, these sets of dates are, there's like a bug circling and it keeps like.
I know, yeah.
It's like someone's taking over my cursor, perfect. Anyway, these dates are likely gonna change a little bit. They were based on the ability for the district board to approve a resolution at your second board meeting in May 21st, which would set a public hearing for your first board meeting in June. However, based on some information we got from board members a couple weeks ago, 2 board members were planning on missing the May 21st board meeting, and so we've calendared the potential of a board meeting cancellation. So if that occurs, these dates all need to slip a couple of weeks. And that actually might work out, well, just luck of the draw, because these weeds are gonna continue to be a problem all through the month of May, and it probably doesn't make much sense to be out inspecting today, because they're gonna keep growing.
Because of my wife's broken arm, we've canceled our vacation.
Okay, you're changing your.
Yeah, so I would be at the 21st. Debbie won't be, but
That's something the board can take up tomorrow. Maybe we should pull that item off consent, and then you can decide if you want to keep it or not. At this point, I don't think we're prepared to. I think at this point, those dates are gonna slip either way, because inspections haven't begun yet. And their grasses are gonna keep growing. So even if we were to inspect today and somebody had cut, maybe for 3 times, probably still gonna have more cutting ahead.
Yeah, I don't have that much people behind me. Rossi there, they got that big patch.
Yeah.
I'm sure they wouldn't mind you going out there.
I do the back of my fence, which is on their property,
Oh, okay.
just to be able to protect myself a little bit, and that's where it ends.
So these dates would slide until June 18th, and that means the district contractor wouldn't be able to start abating until the 19th of June. But again,
I guess as long as the weather stays mild, we shouldn't have fire danger.
How many lots do you normally cut?
No,
About 8?
and what we're seeing right now, there've been a couple of small fires that have, happened in the county. And they're just very slow, what we call dirty burns. Keith's familiar with the dirty burn concept, and it just kind of burns around some of the dry stuff and then doesn't burn that green stuff. But then it starts to dry out that green stuff, and eventually winds up, getting
changes
worse.
quick. Dry out. It's hot in a few days, it can change.
Well, the amount of wind yesterday, wind will definitely dry the flashier fuels out much quicker. And then this next week, the sun is out and a warming trend is gonna start, so.
Just again, for your information and because you communicate with members of the public, we have this flyer went out in our utility bill. But if anyone ever asks you, if the property is 3 acres or smaller, everything has to be abated. No, there's no option to reduce the cutting. But if the property is larger, then you can cut the perimeter, and there's actually some guidelines here in the same flyer about these fire breaks. So we do have larger parcels that can follow those procedures, but smaller properties have to abate the entire site. And just because it was abated at the time of inspection doesn't relieve the obligation of maintaining that abatement. So if it were to continue to rain, for example, and you cut in May, you might still need to cut again in June.
So for example, last year, Dr. Billig's property on Las Tablas, we had a little situation there where our contractor went out, recut. We made attempts to contact him, to no avail, letters, and they received a bill. Was a little upset about it. This year, they've already gone out and tilled it and cut it, and it's starting to regrow again. So it's just that learning process of you gotta keep checking the property, you're responsible for your property.
And every year is different, right? Like
Yeah.
those dry years, the cutting in April would have been
Not
sufficient.
once, yeah.
Getting weeds that I've never seen before.
Again, 2 wet years in a row. I mean, I don't know. Last year was so wet, about 45 inches of rain here in Templeton, that certain parts of the ground never really dried out. So it didn't take much to get, fully saturated soils.
Any other questions, comments on this item? How are we doing? Going fast? You're doing good.
We're saving plenty of time for the station expansion.
You gotta give me some time, I'm going through that. Okay, apparatus, station status. Is that?
Apparatus and station status, essentially, this is just kind of an update of where we're at. We are still looking at some I'll start with apparatus. Like I mentioned, engine 7195, 23-year-old engine, it's still having issues. I think the board was made aware of the electrical issues that took place here recently where we lost code 3 lights
Yes.
en route to a call. Some of those lighting issues continued. And we spent, I think, a little over $3,000 on diagnosing and going through those electrical issues. We replaced the entire bank of switches and several relays within the engine electrical circuitry. It seems to have resolved the problem. And so fingers crossed, we're in good shape there. But again, it just seems to pop up issues as a 23-year-old engine's gonna continue to do. The station, excuse me, the biggest thing right now is still, the electrical. And I know we're gonna have conversations, with regards to the station. I've been hesitating spending the amount to upgrade and fix the electrical, not upgrade, just repair the electrical. Until we figure out what we're doing with the station, but I think I'm at that point now, before the end of the year, I'm gonna have to expend that roughly $10,000 to make the repairs that need to be made, because we just, as the board is aware, we just recently, found some charred wiring in the electrical panel as a result of the electrical that's in this side of the station. So that will probably happen before July. And that's pretty much it on the station.
You were mentioning the driveway having some issues.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. So recently, committee member Exum will appreciate this one. What happens periodically is when these driveways aren't poured as thick as they should be, they can start to crack. And then you'll get water saturating through the cracks, and it'll do something called hydraulicking, to where water gets under there, and then it kind of creates a soft spot. Now you're continually driving over that with those, 60,000 pound engines, and it will start cracking and then just get worse and worse and worse. Well, we've now experienced that. And so we're potentially, we're keeping an eye on it, but we're potentially looking at a driveway repair within the next year. Especially if we have a situation where the wet years continue, it could just make that significantly worse. It's got a big crack, and the crack is actually starting to settle in now to where it's creating a divot. And then what happens is water just pools there and exacerbates the issue. So that's the,
Are we putting that in the budget?
It's not in the budget. It's not a budgeted item. I only became aware of it just like a week ago.
So probably we have to discuss that.
Yeah, or evaluate our options for repair.
Okay. Any questions?
I had to repair 2 stations in San Luis, really expensive. Station 2 in the front, which is the oldest station, and then where the truck comes in, where they wash the truck, Station 1, the same thing, and that was like 60,000. But, I mean, they poured it, 20 inches thick or whatever.
Yeah.
But the truck's almost 80,000 pounds too, though, it's a heavy vehicle.
yeah, we would need to do probably about 8 inches.
Makes sense. All right.
A little heavier than your car pulling in your driveway.
Yeah. Okay.
What's going on now, if anything, with the training center out there? Haven't heard anything about that in quite a while.
Well, we're doing some evaluation on the training grounds, and potentially looking at moving it to the upper field up there. That way we're giving as much space for the wells and the Nacimiento, percolation project as possible. So I'm putting together a plan that I'll submit to the general manager within the next couple weeks, and then go from there.
Okay.
While we're on the topic, this is going to, my recommendation firmly will be not to make any concrete plans for the training facility until we have our Nacimiento recharge and recovery facility well laid out.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the recommendation was what?
Not to make any firm commitments on what we do at the training center.
Oh,
until
I
then.
see.
That was a water water fund pay
Yes.
for that, all that property, and I'm trying to protect those water assets, and so I wanna make sure that, that should drive where the training facility, what land is made available for the training facility.
Okay, so.
To move. Right now, it's just sitting really close to some wells.
Yeah, so
And,
get it away.
Yeah, there's just some advantages of getting it out of that floodplain and away from those wells before we make further investment, but because of our timing with the Nassau Recharge Recovery Facility, it may mean that we're not able to make firm plans on where that goes.
And then where would the money for that come? For a training center, which, but that calendar wise, not.
So we've got funds in your master plan, which for improvements to the training facility, which fed the development impact fee calculations. For it, but you couldn't use those monies to necessarily replace something that's already there, only to expand it.
Okay, alright, so that
So
was.
it might be a combination of both operational funds and development impact fees, but what we have here started out being kind of a, low cost thing, and over time it's been expanded on, there were some comics boxes that were put together for training, and over time that's expanded into some concrete areas and additional training facilities that kind of surround that first piece that was there. So it's been expanded, it's been done, over the years. Some of those facilities can be relocated. I mean, they're not, it's not fair for me to say easily, but they're those, you can pick up those. I couldn't pick them up, but they can be moved.
With the right piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And quite honestly,
They don't let me
in-
operate those pieces of equipment.
in the little bit of research we've done, it would be cheaper to just buy 4 new 40-foot Conex boxes
Oh,
and reassemble them
Oh,
and try
okay.
and move those.
oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. that would
It
be
actually significantly cheaper.
I guess that would be a topic of discussion at a later date.
Yeah, so like I said, we're just looking at, before we continue to make further investment out there, does it make sense
Yeah.
to consider, is this where we want it to be for the next 50 years?
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Almost there. Any other questions? No, awesome, all right. Now we get back to the item of station, expansion concept review, please.
so on this item, I just really want to walk, because the committee members on this committee are different than you've been in at least 6 or 8 years. And so I kind of just wanted to spend some time kind of walking you through, how we got to, how we got to this concept. In 2021, the district undertook a fire master plan project. Well, that is a very anxious critter. Fly or whatever is running around there. We did a master plan. The board members will remember that. And that one of the outcomes, or one of the recommendations of the master plan, was to develop a capital facilities plan with budget level estimates of costs. And the master plan identified that the current station doesn't have a lot of value without significant expansion. And you might recall that we undertook this master plan shortly after going live with our 24/7 staffing, and that for many years, actually, since the current facilities were built, they've changed a little bit, but largely in 1996. So what's that, 28 years ago, we were a fire station that fire crews were primarily volunteer based or reserve based, where the call would come in, folks would respond to the station, grab the equipment, and then respond to the call, return to the station. There was not necessarily hard staffing. Over time, there became daytime staffing, and occasionally we had various incentives to have persons spending the night, but they weren't even on until 2020. Until 2020, they weren't even technically on duty at night. They were just accepting a little bit of an incentive to be here. So it wasn't really ever designed as a 24-hour station, and so that was recognized. We did this master plan. Master plan was that analysis was accepted by the board in 2021, and then in late 2021, we did an RFP for, or maybe it was an RFQ for qualified architects. And in early 2022, the district hired Rubio Medina. Rubio Medina to be our architect for the purpose of developing station expansion concepts and budget level estimates. And Rubio developed a couple of sort of back of the napkin kind of concepts, and the staff and the fire committee endorsed one that led to this concept that I have on the plans. And just to, or have on the screen here, and just to orient you, everything from like here over is the existing, is this is this boardroom right here. It's a really annoying fly. Right here, these are the district's admin offices. This isn't super accurate. This little, he imported some plans that we had, and this little office was never built and or does not exist. This is the little conference room that's right through this door, and this was Tina Meyer's office. This room does not, this is the current the bottom floor of the fire station offices. And it doesn't have this layout. This shows the layout after some remodel is done. Right now, this whole front area is a lobby, and there's an office that sits right in this vicinity, and then another one that sits right here that has been converted into bedrooms since we've gone to the 3-person overnight staffing. There's this very small restroom, like maybe call it just a half bath or something, that sits in this little corner here. And I believe we call this a radio room. It's a little workspace that sits.
Engineer's desk.
Yeah, so little sits right here. And then this space, from about right here over is the fire chief's office, and this spot right here is like a storage room. And then the current living space for our firefighters is in this upstairs area. This little box accommodates a staircase. Along this wall right here is a kitchen. Small kitchen. This is like a common room, and there are 2 bedrooms against this back wall, and then a bathroom and laundry facilities upstairs.
Okay.
It's pretty limited. So that's the current environment, and then, of course, this apparatus bay is shown more or less as it is now, although this little cutout right here doesn't. This is proposed. It doesn't. It's all open, one open room right now. So the proposal, again, this dates back now 2 years, would be to construct a new 2-story expansion that would sit immediately behind the apparatus bay. And again, the chief can go through all these details, however you'd like to discuss them or understand them. This clean room and turnout lockers would be outside of the engine bay and here in a separate room. There'd be this extractor and a shower for dirty, if you came off a dirty incident, you could use that right here. There'd be a shop, a storage room, a workout room, a day room. This is where the kitchen would be. There'd be a dining place and room for the on-duty crew in this downstairs location. And then upstairs, there would be dorm rooms, 6 of them, 3 bathrooms would be built, a laundry facility, storage room, janitorial area. The current upstairs is conceptually converted into a conference room, but really that would be part of a second phase that was envisioned to take place immediately after this 2-story addition would take place. That the current rooms could be eliminated, and this could be used for another purpose. A conference room is one kind of concept. And then this change of the front office configuration would take place. The door, this is where the door is now, but the offices would change a little bit, and there'd be a restroom on the floor and a couple of office spaces added in here. So this was again completed about 2 years ago, and at that time, after the plans were conceptually blessed, these by the way are not construction plans, they're just floor plans, concept plans. The architect developed cost estimates for the work, and the cost estimates for everything for 2 phases ended up being about $5.3 million. And there was quite a bit of sticker shock amongst the fire committee members at the time and the board, and not too much work was ever done by the fire committee following those figures. But they do, those figures were incorporated into the fire master plan. That fire master plan, was then adopted by the board, blessed by the committee last spring, adopted by the board last March of 23, and was the basis of the new fire development impact fees. And that's kind of where we are. In the meantime, I'm sorry, let me step back for 1 second. Knowing that this was kind of such a, it was gonna be a challenge to acquire that much money to proceed with the project, and even if the estimates were off a little bit, it was still significantly more than what we had hoped, I guess. Maybe that's not the best word, expected the outcome to be. It was a lot more expensive than we were expecting at the time the plans were developed. We started looking at other options, including maybe interim options. For example, the fire master plan contains improvements at the fire training facility. One of those improvements could be a modular building to be used for training, or maybe some other related purposes. Right now, the training facilities have no restrooms, really no facilities out there. It's just outdoor training. And one of the concepts that was discussed was we could acquire that modular building like a manufactured home and place it behind the existing fire station as an interim station expansion. And then when the district acquired enough funds to proceed with the permanent station expansion, remove that modular building, take it out to the training facility, have it put back together there and use at that location, and then proceed with this development. The chief has continued to think about other options that would not require an interim solution, and we've looked at things such as expanding elsewhere on the property or maybe scaling the project down. But those are concepts right now. There's nothing that's sort of concrete. I think the only thing you've kind of ruled out is did look at expanding above the existing office space. So this plan doesn't put anything, a second floor over the existing office space. And the fire chief did look at, could this accommodate our needs? And it looks like there's gonna be some structural issues that make that not very feasible.
The per square foot cost, or I should say, square foot versus cost benefit just doesn't work out, as opposed to adding something in an open space, either behind the station, behind the apparatus bay or something like that, would make far more financial sense to gain us more square footage than going up above existing, because of the impact on the footings and everything else that would have to take place.
So this is where we stand. There's been no, this concept is part of the district's fire master plan, and it makes up the fee component, it feeds that fee component. And we've had some additional conversations with the architect that helped develop them, including he's still open to working with us on other concepts. The fire chief's attending a station design conference here in just a couple of weeks to just get more ideas. I think that's our goal. Are we missing, are there concepts that we ought to be looking at that are alternatives to this that could meet a long-term need that would be less expensive? By kind of just way of framing this, we've got about $3 million in the fire capital fund. We think about 350,000 of that will need to be spent on the new engine, because that's our contribution or our share. And so we've got maybe 2.6 or $2.7 million in the capital fund that can go towards station expansion. We continue to collect funds into that account, but if we had to wait until we had $5 million, it would take quite a while to get there.
The cost will continue to go up.
Yeah, the costs can continue to rise. And then additionally, there's just the concern about the district sustaining that sort of investment. And what does that mean to the fire fund's operational impact? So, that's where we are. I know there's interest on the part of board members to kind of review this. Is this still the very best plan? et cetera. I think there are other concepts could have been pursued, could still be pursued. We've never, I mean, we do not have a building permit pulled for this project.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it. You have any questions?
Not right now.
Okay.
Well, I have several questions. I don't know
Okay.
if you want me to go.
Sure, go ahead.
But, well, I just the first one, just based on the cost, does the district own any other property? Is there a possibility of repurposing this square footage for the fire
Yes.
station and building a new, an actual, CSD facility? A new, new office?
So there's, I'm just, okay, so the district owns, yes, the district owns where the Parks and Recreation Building is on Main Street, where the community center is on Main Street, and
I
the
mean,
parking
like,
facilities.
like vacantly, any vacant?
We own parks,
Oh,
Okay.
you used to
No.
own that property and vineyard, but we sold. it.
yeah, there was actually property on Vineyard in
Oh.
Vineyard in Bethel that was slated for a second fire station. So, but I think it's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly the way it is now. I mean, one concept that was put forward was, you know, this space in this room, you know, does the boardroom have to be at this location? And my answer would be no. I mean, it wouldn't be terribly difficult to relocate the items that take place here to the community center. There's generally availability there. Although I don't wanna undertake that, it's not free, and and it's not as convenient.
Right.
I don't wanna undertake that unless it's really gonna be valuable for the fire station expansion. Yeah, just moving it for shits and giggles wouldn't be worthwhile.
Well, I'm gonna leave it at that. I'll see what questions you have.
Oh, all right. So, I mean, this is a beautiful plan and yes, it's gonna meet quite a bit of our needs, but I just wanna, because it's so expensive, realistically, we're not gonna have $5.5 million for at least another 10, 15 years. And then by the time it gets built, I mean, it's just gonna, we're talking probably 15, 20 years down the road. So, so this is beautiful, but I think we, as you mentioned, we need to look at other ideas. So let me just start with staffing. Right now, we have 3 shifts, correct? That come in, and there are 3 people in each shift.
Correct.
And they don't necessarily overlap, do they? So like 3 come in and then the other 3 leave. So, okay, so we only have 3 people at once here, and then
With very few exceptions.
with
I say that just because in February, we did have 2 crews on. That's very rare.
Well, yeah, I mean, and those are emergency situations where we're, you know, when we had the storm event, we're bringing personnel on to help cover the increase in call volume. And so we did sleep a couple of people up in recliners, and, you know,
yeah.
in my office, et cetera.
And then typically, you're here during the day, you don't stay at night, right? So we're only talking about 3. Okay, so I mean, I'm looking at this plan and, you know, you see that, I see that we have 6 dorms, 6 bedrooms upstairs, 3 bathrooms, you know, we got the janitorial room, storage room, laundry room. I think for what we have right now and what we could afford for a long time to come, I mean, our budget is really tight and we, you know, we've talked about that too, you know, I mean, Measure A is really nice, but it's just, it's, you know, still, we're pretty tight and I don't foresee us being able to afford hiring many people in near future and not in for another, you know, many years. And so I mean, I could totally see us trying to downsize this and maybe just totally get rid of that 2nd story. And, you know, we have room in the back and instead of putting a modular, thinking about putting a single story, build a, you know, single story, you know, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom type of thing, ADU or home, whatever you like to call it. And that would cost, I think that would cost a lot less. And that would be something that I think we could see a support for it. Also, one other concern I have is that if we do spend $5 or $6 million, the asset replacement cost is going to affect our operational budget. And that's, probably we have to write it off over, depreciate it over 40 years, but at $6 million, we're talking probably $100,000, $125,000 a year. So, I mean, what I like to do, maybe as a committee, set up like a time frame and a budget, and then see, and then leave all options open, especially since you're going in and, taking a look at new designs and things like that. I mean, personally, I like to see something done within 5 years. And, and the cost, if we have, $2.7 million, see what we could do with $2 million. Let's start with $2 million. And, understanding that we have to cut some of this back, and, we would love to have this, but it's not gonna be possible. So if we do end up cutting it back, maybe going to a single story idea, so we're getting rid of all the second story, expansions and things like that, and then concentrate on fixing the electrical of the fire station, and fixing those up. I think we could come up with a, great idea that we could actually move forward on. So, at least, because I just think it may be too much for our, for what we have, right? I mean, what I could foresee us being, as a fire department in the future.
Well, one thing that's kind of interesting is when this, before this plan was maybe had all the details worked out, we thought this was like a $2 to $3 million plan, not a $5 or $6 million plan.
Yeah, no, and you look at it, oh, it's just bedrooms upstairs or something like that, but I guess it costs money, to build.
Well, the per square foot cost and also the, quite honestly, the cost estimate that was sent out was done at probably one of the worst times it could have been done at, is that's when we had all of the lumber increases, the supply chain shortages, et cetera. So it really bumped the cost up. Not to say that it's gone down a whole lot, but we also looked at this from the perspective of, we want to do this once, we want to do it to where it takes care of the next 25, 30 years.
That was one of my questions for Essential Buildings. Are you looking at 50-year
Yeah,
timeline or?
exactly. And so that was the thought with the 6 dorms.
Yeah.
Do I think we can do something that is phased? Yeah, I think we could definitely do something phased. I've reached out to a couple of other engineers in the area who've come out and had discussions with me. And just what you mentioned, a single story right off the back, that could be built to where later you could add a second story if you wanted to, where the foundation is set in such a way and the framing is set in such a way that you could go up. But still only deal with the costs of a single story building that would add the square footage that we need at this point in time to house the personnel that we have. And I think that could be done well within the next couple of years to accommodate something like that. And ease the fact that our captains are in an office right down here.
We gotta see what our needs are and definitely address them. I mean, my thought even was, if we do something, a single story down, somewhere behind us, and then upstairs, we could remodel that pretty, hopefully inexpensively, and, make some more, if we need to make some more bedrooms. So now all of a sudden, we do end up having 5 bedrooms or something like that if needed. So, but yeah, I mean, I would love to try to move on this project and make it happen. So I think if we could kind of set a goal for ourselves, what we want to do, where we want to be, that would be the most beneficial. Because I think we kind of like got that price sticker shock at 5.5, and kind of we've stopped even thinking about it. So, but
I haven't stopped thinking about it.
I think the board has stopped thinking about it, so I like Woody's idea. The idea is, I'm not sure about setting the goal on that, but I mean, I definitely think that we ought to come up with some different plans. So that, right now, there are certain people that believe that the board or the fire committee hasn't done what they should have done. I disagree with that, but I think Naveed kind of hit it on the head. it's kind of fallen to the back of the bus. Not in your case, because the whole bus is the front for you.
Yeah, and I'll accept, some of that responsibility. We made the decision that internally, that the getting this engine on its way was the number one priority, and we did not want to distract. It was far more important than the station expansion. I mean,
Yeah.
without a new engine, without a reliable engine, it doesn't matter if you have all the, marble bathtubs in the fire station. If the engine cannot roll to the incident and provide services, we're out of business, really. So getting that, that has been our focus over the past couple of years, is putting that in a position to succeed and not, I didn't want the engine purchase to compete with the station expansion goals. Now we've got the funding lined up, for the engine. We've got that underway, and we can begin to move forward on revisiting this, the station.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I don't think there's fault to be given to anybody at this point in time. I'll take the blame for it. I'll blame me for not.
I mean, now we know
You know,
how much money we have.
But I really think that, as a board member, I would like to see another plan and a cost. And what we can and can't do. I know there's people that think that maybe we should move down to the women's club down there, or things like that. I personally don't agree with that. I don't agree with, we just spent how much money putting the video in here and the sound system, everything else in here. Now we're gonna tear it apart and make it a bedroom. Yeah, anyway,
Well, I mean, fire department could still obviously use this for their meetings and conference rooms and things
Yeah,
like that.
absolutely.
So I don't see a problem.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this could be all, part of the, included in the plan.
So if I can just add a couple things here, for the committee to take into consideration. Some of the stuff that's coming down the pipeline, with regards to state and federal regulations is cancer prevention. Cancer prevention is gonna be one of those things, and this is just an example. But OSHA has just recently adopted an NFPA requirement, for, extricators, extractors, turnout extractors, and that they have to be serviced and inspected annually. These are costs that, we don't necessarily want to incur, but now they become state mandated by OSHA. The second one is, turnouts. Turnouts now, as a state mandated requirement through OSHA, have to go out to a third-party vendor to be cleaned once a year and inspected. So we can't even do it internally. It's gotta be a third party.
You'll never guess who pushed for that.
Yeah.
Well, the turnout manufacturer.
Oh, yes.
So with that being said, now some of the talk is with regards to the clean room. And having that separation in between the apparatus bay and the offices or living spaces and those types of things. So those are some of the things that I'd like the community to take into consideration, that we are going to have to incorporate.
Yes.
Otherwise, we're gonna find ourselves
Well, yeah.
being fined like LA County just recently did at 5.3
Yeah,
million.
no.
Ironic number.
No, I mean, definitely, we gotta incorporate what we need, and that's part of what you mentioned for over the next 40, 50 years. I think that's more essential, making sure that we have the tools and equipment and the functionality.
Yeah.
As far as bedrooms and things like that, I think those are maybe a little more flexible. We could work with that.
Correct. Yeah.
In terms of location of and where it could be. But yeah, definitely you have to have your clean room and, all that, so.
Yeah, and with regards to the downstairs, if we reworked some of the workshop, workout and storage areas, and created something that, moved out into the apparatus bay a little bit, we could come up with kind of a new concept design for just a single story
Yeah.
back there behind it.
That would be.
And then, like I say, knock down the walls upstairs, depending upon what I come back from Phoenix with after the station conference design. I've also opted to have what's called a one-on-one with their architectural staff.
Oh, wow.
And so I'll be able to sit down, show them this concept, give them our cost estimates, budgetary limitations, and say, this is where we're at. And see what the ideas stem from those conversations.
Yeah, that would be
So-
great.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see all of this come in a plan like this though. And I guess have you highlight what's gonna be mandated by the state we can't get rid of, other than, you know, having you tell me now, cause I'm gonna forget as soon as I walk out the door, cause this is not my bailiwick. And, you know, I need something like this to look at and say, okay, this is what we need, this is how much it's gonna cost, this is what we definitely have to have. That's what I would be looking, as a committee member and a board member, looking for.
So take into consideration, this might be something that when I come back from the station design conference, that I may have to come to the board at that point, you know, and sit down with the general manager and kind of come up with a budget and say, okay, we're gonna have to spend an additional $20,000-$30,000 to have something designed again that changes this layout, and then, you know, go from there to construction documents with the board's blessing.
I think, I don't have a really, personally, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I think you need a plan to look at. I mean, you know, you could talk something to death without ever having, especially at the board level or even the committee level.
And that's what I would do, is I'd put together as the general manager called it, a napkin sketch. You know, whether it comes back to this committee, first, which probably would, get your blessing to go to the full board, say this is the new design we're looking to go after.
Yeah, I think part of it is, you know, we probably, were naive a couple years ago and
Yeah.
with how fast construction costs went up. Designing to budget would be important, must-haves versus, you know, want to have. Actually, this isn't, even this design, even though it's got more space than we would need, it wasn't, you know, it wasn't thought of as the Taj Mahal. It just became, you know, those costs just kind of grew rapidly. And just keep in mind right now, I think what we're faced with, and I kind of wish I had a sketch that showed the existing circumstances. So some of the things that the chief's mentioning that are concerning, more urgently concerning from a safety standpoint are, we have turnout lockers in the engine bay. We have non-functional diesel exhaust removal system, or it's not, there is no functional exhaust removal system in the engine apparatus bay. Those are areas that we should be concerned about. We have nothing that resembles, right now, all the items that are shown in this clean room, to the extent that we have them, they're in the engine bay, so the extractor is in the engine bay. There is no place, if somebody were to come back from a hazardous incident, there's no place for them to shower without going up into the residential, what I'll call residential, the sleeping quarters, to clean up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also keep in mind, and one of the biggest issues we're gonna run into is we have several female firefighters. We have one shower for the entire crew.
Yeah, we gotta keep that in mind. We gotta keep that. No, I mean, that's why.
I mean, the bottom line really is, what can we afford? I mean, we could sit here all day and say, we have to have this, this, and then this, and this. If we can't afford it, we can't afford it. And we're gonna have to do the best we can with the amount of money we have. And I mean, I don't know, you know.
I mean, what general manager mentioned, the items, I mean, we do need to put those in and, you know, take care of those, so and I don't want, you know, just us waiting because we don't have $5 million, so.
Right.
I think we definitely gotta do those items, plus make sure that we are able to accommodate our staff. And I think we could do that in a way that it could be within our budget. And I'm excited about it. I think, as you mentioned, I wanna get this done, excited about it, move forward. And, you know, originally I thought, okay, maybe we do need to take over the boardroom or things like that. But I think if we try to think within what we could do, in terms of a single building right behind us, especially with new state regulations and things like that, I think we could put a, you know, a nice facility behind us without having, having too much issue. We should, we should definitely consider that and move forward.
You're gonna have all the answers when you come back to Phoenix.
Yeah.
Sure.
And you won't be able to have your marble bathroom.
But I think that, I mean, you're looking for direction at this point. And so, I mean, I think the direction, what I understand, what I'm hearing is, hey, the current concept is probably, it's not affordable currently. And long-term, it's probably gonna outpace how quick we're gonna bring any fees in to be able to, offset that. So whereas what can be repurposed upstairs, whether that becomes a day room and then make your bottom section work, ideally would be to have bedrooms on the ground floor only for the expediency of getting the rigs and going. But for the ability that, hey, what, you're gonna have to rework it. So what is that going to look like? And your team puts their heads together and how can we repurpose what? And then what are those costs? What are the costs to go to a kitchen and a day room upstairs and then build bedrooms with your clean room and your workout? And or maybe you block off, an engine bay. I don't know if you can afford to do that based on the number of equipment you have coming. But at least
yeah.
have some direction that
I
you're gonna have to work within a certain means. Maybe it's, $2.5 million is kind of, I don't know, whatever the price point is what's, what funded right now. And just considering, we're not gonna get another dollar by the time this gets built.
Right.
Here's what you're working with and what can you do with it?
Right.
Because maybe you build a shell and then over time it gets, you add things.
Exactly, yeah, and I think the concept that I hope the committee is amicable to and to support to the full board is that this may have to come in phases. So depending upon, even what we're looking at, let's say that, for example, we add on back there, and I'm still going kind of back to the sticker shock that we had at the 5.3 million when I thought it was gonna be 2.3. Even the architect, I said, hey, can you give me a rough estimate on what you think what you're looking at there is gonna cost? He even came back and said, probably 2.4, somewhere in there. And I was like, cool, yeah, we're right there. And so essentially, what I want the committee to kind of understand is if we come back with a new design and that new design comes in at 3 million, then it's like, okay, well, maybe we're only doing half of this, as Keith just said, and now we're adding bedrooms down here, but we got to do some of our own repurposing upstairs.
Well, I guess I have to see what you mean by phases, and that would be when we sit down and look at it. I definitely, whatever we do, I wanna be able to meet our needs now, whatever
Agreed.
needs we have now. And by phases, you mean, okay, maybe down the road, we get a couple more staff and things like that, okay, we'll
No.
have an ability to
No.
build,
I don't think so.
then,
No, I think mainly what I'm talking about is, we would build out the 3 bedrooms downstairs. And we can't do an accommodation for, a new kitchen or day room downstairs just yet. And so we have to take the bedrooms out of upstairs, make that the day room and expand the kitchen upstairs. That until we can phase in 2 where we can move the kitchen or whatnot downstairs and complete that. So that would be kind of the phase 2. It's not expanding that second story or anything like that just yet. But
so you
phasing
working within the.
the $2.5 million budget.
Yeah.
To do what we can do for now.
And if it's
Yeah.
gonna take care of our needs for the next 10, 15 years, I think, we're open to that, so.
Well, yeah,
I would say that phase 1 would be what we really have to have. What's the state gonna tell us we have to have? And then anything we can afford over that, we'll go to the bedrooms and whatever. But I think with the money that we have, my idea of a phase thing is we want this, but we can only afford half of it, which we can build down the road. If we have the money, we'll build. To me, that's what phasing is all about. So. Anyway, I would like to see, I mean, you mentioned some stuff today that I wasn't aware of about, you know, state mandated this, state mandated that.
But
So,
I mean, and also we still gotta keep in mind the whole big picture if whatever money we spend on building this is gonna eventually have a cost for us
Absolutely.
operational, so.
absolutely.
And you know, if so, it is good for us to stay within a certain budget, knowing that, hey, maybe, you know, it's better to be able to get staff and things like that versus having to pay for asset replacement, you know, I'd much rather do that, so.
Oh, trust me, I'd love to be able to come back with the news that, oh yeah, that lower section right there is only gonna cost us $1 million to build.
It's just, it's one thing, it's hard to compare what you might think it costs you to do it
Yeah.
on your house.
Yeah.
This is an essential facility. It's built to a much stronger standard to survive earthquakes that a residential structure doesn't have to survive, or even an office building doesn't have to survive. We're paying prevailing wages. Those are much higher than you might be able to get on sort of the open market. So it's a more expensive type of construction, no matter what we undertake
Yes.
here. So it's just difficult. And keep in mind, costs are, you know, things have gotten pretty expensive,
Yeah. thank you.
even aside from those
Yeah. Yeah.
issues. So that, I think all those things led to this being again, I was a victim of this sort of sticker shock, because I was thinking that, okay, hey, Rubio thinks this is, you know, I don't know, I'll just say $2.5, $3 million. So those things felt doable in a reasonable period of time, and then they came out, you know, 75% more or something, and was like, wow, how are we gonna ever accomplish this? So, yeah, I think I understand your perspective. You know, can we design to budget? Can we meet what we absolutely have to have and make do with things that would be, that are, you know, not ideal, but better than we have today?
Yes.
You know,
And those are some of the questions I'm gonna ask at this conference is, okay, we have $2.5 million. What can we do?
And you know, I mean,
Right.
and you know, I know it was mentioned if we have other properties or building, and you know, I mean, that's always a possibility, we could, you know, look at that, but I think by downsizing and focusing on what we really need, I think we could work within what we have, you know, here, the structure, especially, you know, adding, but in you know, just a single story, that's not gonna be hopefully as expensive, and so let's work with that, and then if that doesn't work, then we'll come back and look at other options.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Any square footage we add out the back is gonna be a benefit.
Yeah.
Because we're taking that 20 pounds of stuff that's in a 5-pound bucket right now and now putting it within a 10-pound bucket. So it's going to help.
Exactly.
yeah, so, it sounds like then you want us, you know, maybe the committee would want us kind of have a better understanding of what kind of concepts might exist.
Yes.
Options to us.
Yeah.
At your next meeting. And yeah, I guess I would approach it like, okay, nothing is really out of the question. I mean, I think like even this board, again, I don't want to volunteer to move what you have here somewhere else, but I don't think it's that enormous. You know, if this were to really create some savings, then it should be under consideration, and I would want to consider it. Now that all the offices and admin, that's a little harder, because I don't have a place for them to go, so they'd have to be replaced, and so all of a sudden you're like, okay. We have to at least save that amount of money to make
Of
that.
course, yeah,
that
no, I
work.
think, no, and again, I think we could build in the back, and now we have opportunities to do that, you know, put a single, I mean, just putting a single story home, I think, like a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom with a kitchen, and, you know, you put that in now, and we have room for it, so why not, you know, look at those things. So, all right, great.
But I know you're gonna get a lot of questions from board members about what is it, you know, they have an idea, but unless you put that idea down on paper and have somebody say what it's gonna cost, that's all it is.
Yeah, and that's what we're gonna.
I mean, you know, you talk all day long, as far as I'm concerned about, you know, making this a room for you guys to sleep in, moving CSD down to the community center or blah, blah, blah. But we need to know what it's gonna cost to do that and what the interruption of the services here and the cost to move and all of that is gonna be also, so. Yeah, I think we're on the right track.
I think so.
So,
Yeah, I think so. I'm
I don't think
excited.
anybody here disagrees, so.
No, I'm excited. I think we should use this opportunity to, see what we could do and move forward. I look forward to you coming back with some designs. Question is, how much time do you think you need? 6 weeks?
So I'm going to, the design conference, May 20th. I'll be back that week. That following week, I could set up a meeting with our architect. We're gonna have to do some budgetary,
Yeah, I mean, it sort of depends. If you wanna look at something that internally we put together, just like super rough, like I'll call them ideas, maybe even short of concepts. Those are things that we can do with our own time. If you want to have architects involved and start working on cost estimates, we have to pay people to help us with that. We need a
plans,
budget, yeah.
cost estimates, those things, we gotta get.
But I don't want to happen this time what's happened here, where we get this nice plan.
Yes.
And you guys say, or we say, it's gonna cost this, and we need to have something, you need to have something better than, okay, this is what we wanna do, we think it's gonna cost this amount. Somewhere in there, we've gotta have a better
No,
system to tell us what it's gonna cost.
Yeah,
within
my-
reason.
My plan is to come back to the committee and then the board with something that's at a pre-designated amount.
Okay. All right.
That this is what we can afford and this is what can be done within that budget.
Yeah, would you, let's put a budget for 2. Seems like we have that money.
I wouldn't say.
I'd leave it to staff.
I wouldn't leave I wouldn't set a budget. I'd
Yeah.
come up with the concept and then be able to break down what it
Yeah.
is at each level.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I mean,
It's hot dog and this is filet mignon.
we know if we can eliminate some of the square footage, we can, if it's new construction, we can save costs. We can eliminate the second floor, we can save costs. We may not know if that's 40% savings or
Yeah.
45% savings, but we can know that it's
Okay.
material savings. So, I think from the perspective of, hey, are we shrinking the cost estimate? We can be confident there. Even the fact that this is not a bid project, we're telling you this is 5.3 million, that's a construction cost estimate. There are no bids. It might be 4.9, it might be 5.9. You don't know until you really go out to bid.
So I'll give you an example of what the recent architect or, engineer just said to me when he came out and was shooting some ideas around. He said, why in the world did your architect design a full scale electrical change out of your panels? And I said, well, he goes, that's $500,000 almost. Of part of that budget. And I said, well, what's the option? He goes, run a separate service just to the new part. He goes, you're talking probably 1/10 of the cost. And so those are the types of things I didn't take into consideration. And I'm hoping that comes out of this type of stuff. So again, I'm gonna have a much better, more detailed layout of, what we can afford and what it'll look like when we come back from this. Again, but as the general manager said, it's just one of those things where how detailed and how specific on cost without getting professionals involved are you gonna want?
So if we come back to you with just some sort of floor plan concepts that are reduced in scale and size, then you can say, yeah, this is worth pursuing further. We don't know if it's gonna be cheap enough, but it's worth putting money towards.
Yeah. Well,
To find out.
to me, we need to have the bare minimums. We need to have what state requires us to have. Let's put that stuff in. And as far as accommodations, let's make sure we have the bare minimums in there. And then go from there. I mean, we can't, we're gonna go with the least amount of, basically the least amount of what we need. So we'll just see what the cost on that is. And then maybe then we could do phase that in, see what.
Yep.
But yeah, so let's just do it. Just do, and then come back with figure out some sort of estimate. That's, you know, and even last time, you guys thought it was gonna be 2 and you were told it was gonna be 2.5 million. And then, I don't know, something changed, I guess.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, it was,
The economy.
It's like, what? Yeah, I mean, we would have designed it differently if you had told, if you had told us from the beginning.
yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that even when you start working, that, you know, there's not a ton of certainty because you don't know.
Yeah.
You're not gonna build it tomorrow, so you don't even know what the costs are gonna
Yeah,
be today. And again, we weren't even certain about how confident we were in that budget, in that cost estimate at the time. But I don't, you know, I didn't expect that we would get a big, go out to bid. One, you know, to turn these plans into construction plans, you're in it for a couple $100,000.
Yeah.
And so, you know, in order to do all that, maybe it was 140.
100, just a little over 100.
So it's expensive to go through the process if you're not gonna be able, if you might not be able to go through with it.
yeah, oh, of course. And now we know that we have, you know, because of the fire truck is, you know, we're getting grant on that. Now we know we could put that money towards, you know, the expansion. So before where we thought 1.7 million, now it's 2.
There'll be nobody here when we get that fire engine.
Yeah, it seems
Well,
like 3 to 5 years.
there'll be people here, it just may not be.
What I mean is it's sitting here.
Yeah. All right.
So did you, okay, I know,
Should we,
yeah,
we
did
went
you
over
wanna-
everything, set up a meeting or?
did you wanna, it sounds like you were interested in kind of reviewing some concepts. Did you wanna try to set a meeting and?
Oh, future items, that's,
Yeah,
yeah, that's what.
Did you, if you let us know what those items are, we can maybe try to calendar a next meeting.
Okay, so obviously we wanna talk about the station expansion. And then we do need to talk about, I guess, the status of the fire engine. At that point, what,
Yeah, depending on
Yeah,
if
where
there's
we
an
are,
art that
yeah.
lands, if we get lucky, I guess.
yeah, and then there's not, oh, weed abatement, you would need to know where we are. if
And
we're
we
doing
aren't
it.
gonna do anything on the grant until when, next year or
I'm
the end of
sorry?
this year? The
Oh,
grant, we're
the
not gonna
safer
do it.
grant, yeah.
Well, we have, when we
March
submitted the
25.
grant already, we've submitted most of the paperwork last week,
No,
so.
no, he's talking
Oh,
about
safer,
the
yeah,
safer.
no, I think you're
We're a year, almost,
last,
Yeah.
next.
yeah,
year.
just,
So we
just
don't
under a
do
year
anything.
away from that.
Alright,
Okay,
okay.
and then yeah, yeah.
So it sounds like the most material item would be the station expansion
Yeah.
concepts.
And
So,
then
you know,
we-
I don't wanna, I mean, I think it's great that we're gathering new ideas and the chief's going to the conference, but I wanna make sure we have enough time to develop at least a couple of little layouts or options to kind of tease you with, so, you know, maybe mid-June at the earliest,
Okay.
is that would give a couple weeks after that
All right,
conference?
sounds good.
Is there, I mean, we could look at, we could look at some, I don't know, Tom, how much time after that, you know, at least a few weeks?
I think if
It's hard to say, but.
if the committee and the board are fine with some very rudimentary drawings, and rough, cost estimates, I think within a couple of weeks after that design, depending upon the information I get. But if it's something where we want something more detailed, knowing what, other departments are doing as far as square foot per cost now,
Mhm.
I've got a good idea. So I would probably plug those factors in and say, you know, at $1,000 a square foot, this is what it's gonna get us.
Okay. Yeah,
So-
that
so-
would be good for a committee meeting, and then we could always figure out on a committee level where we are, and then recommend it to the board, and then if we decide at the board to get an architect and get the estimates where we end up spending $20,000-30,000, and we could do that. But for as far as committee, we could bring it in.
So do you wanna look at maybe sometimes in mid-June? I mean,
Sure.
How about the week of, June 17th? If you have your calendars here, we can,
Yeah.
That'd be
You have,
5 weeks from now, that's 6 weeks.
You know,
Wednesday 19th, is everyone available on that day?
Yeah.
Yep.
What time?
Receive Director Peters.
yeah, I don't know.
It's gonna be a doodle poll if we can't figure it out now.
Or is it the week before better, 12th?
Well, we canceled our vacation because my wife, you know, she wants to do the first part of June and I'm not sure.
You wanna push it later?
Do we do it on the 26th?
I'm not available.
Oh, Miss Doodle's gonna do it again.
Well, how about
Let's
the,
do it the 19th and I'll try to.
I mean, we could tentatively make it the 19th, and if
That's
somebody
the
changes,
boss.
somebody's plan changes, we could, I mean, it's just, we can hold the date. And
Okay,
if somebody's plan changes and you end up being unavailable, we can then,
Let's do that.
look another time. So how about same time, does 3 o'clock work?
yes,
Fine.
or sooner.
Earlier better for you?
No, it's,
Oh,
Doesn't matter to me.
no, I'm retired.
You want to do 1 o'clock? Or is that?
I'll wait for Carrie to send it out.
Pardon me?
I said I'll wait for Carrie to send
I
it
mean,
out.
if there's a preference, I don't care, I don't really have one. 3 o'clock's fine with me, I don't.
Okay. Yeah, let's do just 3 o'clock.
Okay, so we'll do a save the date, and then let us know over the coming weeks if something comes up and you wanna reschedule that, then we'll look at other dates, but if you could hold that for the time being. And we'll work on, that'll be probably somewhat more focused of an item, we'll just look at some concepts.
All right.
Okay.
sounds good. Okay. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.